Hello, Maria.
Hello again. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, fine.
Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
That's absolutely fine.
So, I'm going to dive straight in. You are a
Okay.
celebrant. You are,
Sorry.
sorry, you are a celebrant. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you explain a little bit about what a celebrant is, please?
Okay. Basically, a celebrant can be two basic people, a funeral celebrant or a wedding celebrant. And a celebrant is a person that can offer an alternative ceremony to the normal, as in, we'll talk about a wedding for the moment, and I'll come on to the funeral. So, for a wedding ceremony, um, we're not allowed to do the legals. However, they can be married in pretty much any location, except a church or a religious building. Now, what we do, we interview the clients, hopefully both partners are there, any children or any other relatives, and go through the whole ceremony format. I have a basic form which we fill in, and then we do the stories, how they met, um, all sorts of things go into it, including they can have a variety of their own vows. Now, this is interesting. We've had some really funny vows. As a celebrant, we're not by law able to do um, the vows that the minister or vicar or the registrar does, but we reword them. They're very similar, but not exactly the same. Now, within the ceremony, they can include family members, children. They could have, for example, a sand ceremony. So if there are children, they can all come up, all the adults, and pour different colour sands into a beautiful little bottle, and that represents the come on, that represents all the communal and the family getting together.
Yeah.
So they take that away. Now, with a wedding, it can be as personal, as quiet, or as loud and as big as the couple want it to be. It can be very informal. Most of them are. Family garden, they're wonderful little ceremonies. I've had one in a woodland. You can have them on the beach, which I haven't done, but they are available. The middle of a park, and I think you just probably get to get local council permission to hold that there. So that yes, it's really very vast of what we can offer as opposed to a church wedding or a registrar wedding. And it just opens it up. It's so much more personal. A
Yeah.
registrar wedding's probably about 15 minutes and then a bit of time for photos. We can take an hour or 2 hours or 45 minutes, whatever the couple want. And I am with them for that duration until they've finished with me.
So,
Yeah.
so it's not legally binding the way
No,
the ceremony, but do you find it's more popular? Is it growing in popularity having a celebrant?
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, if, for instance, we'll take a church wedding, the cost of the church wedding and then hiring a hall, you are still running into thousands. With a registrar, what I advise if my couples watched in their budget, go to the registrar midweek. Obviously, it has to be pre booked. Probably a Wednesday morning, just the two of them. They don't need witnesses. They'll use the registrars as witnesses. And depending on the local area, it can be around £60, and they are legally married. And some will do that a few days or a week before their wedding ceremony, where they, as I say, can be held wherever. And as regards costs, obviously, it depends on the budget of the couple. but it's usually a lot cheaper and better than, as I say, a church or registrar wedding.
Mm.
A lot of registrars are trying to incorporate a little bit of what we do, but they're limited on time and they still have the same set of words, just a few variations of it. Um, Basically, it's absolutely nothing like what we do.
I suppose the
And
appeal of, sorry, I think the appeal of celebrants is the flexibility that you offer.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the fact that we can include family members, you know, if there's granny and granddad there, or the new baby, or whoever it is, we can include them all if they want. And with that, there's various little um, there's various things we can include in that. For example, as I say, the sand ceremony or a candle ceremony, or the signing of the certificate, which I make, and it's to their choice, and they can have the witnesses to that. The basic ceremony, what I do, will include a certificate. We can go up in steps and they can have more included within the ceremony.
Are you able to describe some of the more exotic or like some of the things people have requested? Can you give us a flavor of some of the things you've had to do as a celebrant, some of the requests, some of the scenarios?
For the weddings, yes, I've done a local football ground where they'd hide the room and then went and had the photos on the pitch. It was actually at the Wolverhampton Wanderers ground, so the whole room was done out in black and yellow balloons, and they requested I wear something in that colour scheme just to blend in. All good fun, absolutely wonderful. The woodland one I did not so long back, absolutely beautiful. And a lot of the ladies were wearing sort of flowery, it was a springtime,
Yeah.
flowery dresses, and all the benches there were made out from the trees. There was a little arch that had been made by the venue, but that we stood under, and they had the videographer and the DJ, and they later went on to a huge yurt, is that the right way to pronounce it, where they celebrated the food and the drink, etc. I take with me, if it's that kind of wedding, my own speaker and microphone and various other bits, just to make sure they can all hear me.
Yeah.
Unusual requests, I haven't had many. I did have a couple whose the lady came from America, and I had to keep reiterating it was not a legal wedding, but it was a very, very small garden wedding. And they later called me back to do a hand fasting. Now, hand fasting is pretty much a pagan thing. And I said, I'm not really the person to do that. It still isn't legal. However, they still wish me to do it. And with that, depending on what colours they want, you make the ribbons, whether they're plaited or whatever they want, and do the hand fasting or the hand wrapping, which is another kind of commitment to each other. But I always recommend, there's a few ladies that do just that, and they are more pagan than what I can offer, you know. And
Is
I do express it's not legal. All the while,
yeah.
it's not legal.
Do you find people get confused sometimes between what you do and like you say, it being legally binding as opposed to what a registry office can offer?
Yes, well, on the very first inquiries, we always make them aware that the first thing I say usually is we cannot perform a legal ceremony. The different celebrant societies in the country have sort of amalgamated under one umbrella to lobby the government to try and make it legal. And this has been going on 8 or 9 years. So heaven knows if they allow it. They do agree that the registrar is quite archaic now in
Yeah.
their performance and what they do.
Am I right
But
Sorry, Maria.
sorry,
Am I right in thinking that, for example, a registrar you can only get legally married in certain venues? Like they're limited into where they can perform the legal service, or are they free
Yes,
to do it?
that's yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
For example, they could hire quite a big hotel and their rooms are booked there, and the cost is passed on to the couple, which again can be quite expensive. If they wanted a celebrant after the registrar, we cannot go in there until the registrar has left the building. Quite why, I'm not sure of that rule. It has happened. Um, just, I think, so families can see they're legally married and the ceremony is performed by the celebrant.
Do you think there's a kind of snobbery between a registrar and a celebrant in terms of they're not they can't do quite this offer the same service? Do you think that's maybe one of the reasons why they don't want you to be in the same building as them? Is the do they feel it's not quite the same thing and they don't want to be associated with what the role of the celebrant?
Absolutely, absolutely. As it started to progress with celebrants up and down the country, as I say, many councils have tried to hit back. Um, they still can't perform the same ceremony as us. However, Dudley Council, for example, they will offer a complete package. So you go there, you get married, they book the room, they book the car, they book the photographer, the venue, whatever table ornaments you want, they do a whole package. And again, it's not actually that cheap, but it may appeal to some people because everything's done for you.
Mm,
And that's not just on weddings. As a celebrant, slightly going off weddings, we can perform baby naming.
mm.
So it's not actually a christening, but it's the same kind of ceremony. And we've even heard that Dudley Registrar Office or the council will perform a baby naming. And we can't quite grasp why, because there's nothing legal about a baby naming, actually, or a christening, you know. But they will offer these things. And what was quite shocking a few years ago, we also do renewal of wedding vows. And Dudley Registrar, I'm using Dudley, maybe you want to take Dudley out, that registry office invited couples who'd been married 20 or 25 years to come along and renew the wedding vows. And when I found out what it was, and I did pass it on to other celebrants, there was a room full of the couples, and they basically all said the renewal vows at the same time. So there's nothing, absolutely nothing personal.
Yeah.
And they're already married, so you don't
Yeah.
need the registrar office to do that. And,
Yeah.
we all went mad, but that's the kind of thing they do on the backlash. So, yes,
Yeah, it does seem strange where the Dudley Council they'll offer the what do you call it, the naming ceremony for the child. So they'll offer that service, but they don't offer a celebrant service
that's
for
right.
for people who want to get married. But they do offer the renewing of the vows. Sorry, it's like they're picking and choosing what they offer.
That's right. That's right. And it is because they, by law, really, I don't think they can do what we do.
Mm,
And I see it, and a lot of celebrants see it. Actually, we should work together.
yeah,
If it worked together and we went along and they'd got a room hired, it'd be fantastic, and it's a win-win situation for everybody, I think. But no, they're very anti-celebrant.
in terms of celebrants, how long have they been around as a profession?
In this country, probably for about 15 years, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, I've been doing this for about 10 years. Um, it was all kind of very quiet. And when I first inquired as to the nature or the course of the celebrants, it was quite hard to find somebody to deliver the course. And it was very expensive, which at the time I couldn't afford. So probably 12, 18 months later, I thought, oh, I'll look it up again. It was a little bit more popular. And I actually did my training funny enough, on a Zoom course. So it was face to face as often as we needed. So it could have been 2 or 3 times a week. And that was as personal as we could get, which was a lot cheaper than going to a venue for a week long training. For me, I took about 4 months to complete as a family celebrant as opposed to a funeral celebrant, to complete all the training, and had a nice diploma at the end of it. But unfortunately, of recent times, there's a lot of people coming on board saying, oh, I can do that job. And they will kind of find out what a celebrant does. If it's a funeral, we've known them sit at the back of the room and make notes, and then go along to, for example, a funeral director and say, oh, yes, I can deliver a funeral. And they're not qualified. We don't know if they've got that empathy or that personal touch for the family that's bereaved going on to the funeral side.
Mm.
And it's awful, you know, as far as the funeral directors go. If they've done a kind of okay job and they're half our price, then they get more work. And it's horrible because it's detracting from our training,
So,
basically.
to become a celebrant, you have to be qualified, you have to undergo training, and there's people who think they can do it because they see you delivering the service and they undercut you, but they're not trained in the same way that you are in the empathy and
That's right. That's right. And it's hard because, say, you know, a lot of us or most of us spent a long time training and gaining our certificates just for somebody to come along and think they can do the job.
yeah.
And very often, funeral directors will sit in on the room and listen to the celebrant, so they know
Mm.
if they've delivered it poorly or it's just bog standard.
Mm.
Whereas the trained celebrant, again, it's very detailed and to that family. Um, we've had, I've delivered funny funerals. I've delivered, obviously, most funerals are somber, but you want the family to be grateful that that person has lived and
Yeah.
that person has been around. And you don't want them to go out thinking they want to cut the throat. You know, we've had them going out. I've had some coming in to a kind of a dancing music. And when you're walking to that pace and you're trying to keep it slowly and you don't want to step up, and everybody sat down, and I've said, oh, did you really want to dance into that? And they was going, yeah, yeah. And that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
You know, I had a lady who was an avid bingo caller. So one of the rhymes that I write my own poetry, but I did purloin a bingo song and changed it to fit her. And everybody was singing this bingo song, you know. And there are people that, guys or women, that like a drink. So another song, again, I don't know the writer of the song, but I've used it, or poem, and it's to the tune of the Lord's Prayer, but it's our beer that art in barrels, and I won't go through it all. And I do say, before I say, this is meant in the fun it's intended to be, so as not to upset other people. And it's put the fun into funeral.
Yeah.
You know, if that makes sense.
It does. I think that it's great. The service that you offer is so personal, and I love that. I think me personally, I'm not that religious, so having more of a secular service fits in with me, and just
Yes,
being able to tailor it to the individual. I mean, I'd love people to laugh at my funeral. I think it's a
exactly.
celebration of the person's life as much as it is a somber
Exactly.
affair. In terms of the qualification to be a celebrant, how long does it take, the course?
Well, for me, because it was a sort of a Zoom style, we fitted in with both of us. So if he said, can you do Wednesday? No, I can't do Wednesday, do it Thursday. So there was no real set time.
Yeah.
And for people that want to rush into it, you're not taking it all in. For me, it took about 4 months. I've known ladies take a lot longer, and I've known ladies, or gentlemen, by the
Mm.
way, do it a lot quicker. So that again, we say around 6 months, but it can be a lot less.
And if somebody's interested in becoming a celebrant, what's the first step?
I always recommend that they Google or look up celebrant training services, and you'll have quite a few come up. But look into those, see what they offer, see if they offer um, qualifications, see if they're offering a 5 minute course, and really go with your gut instinct. And if you know a celebrant or you want to talk to a celebrant, they're quite easy to get hold of. Get in touch with them and ask their advice. You know, we want the best people out there. So homework before you start any course.
Yeah. Maria, it's been incredible talking to you. I love the fact you've got options in life. It's nice to have the choice of choosing because it's so important how you celebrate certain things, whether it's a christening of a child or being married or a funeral.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you for asking me, and hope we can meet up again one day. And good luck with everything. And I know you're doing well. I've looked at some of your podcasts, so fantastic.
Thanks, Maria. Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Take care. Bye bye, Tony.
Bye.
Bye bye.